Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Footballin', the first episode of the new year. It is January 1st, 2018, so Happy New Year, but it is not a joyous day for everyone because it's Black Monday in the NFL. A lot of coaches have been let go by their teams, and it's the coaching carousel. It's the nature of the business. It's a very cutthroat type of business. We will go over all of that, but first, I want to go into this Week 17 slate of games, this insane slate of games, especially the 425 slate where playoff seeding was literally decided by one of the last plays of the 2017 NFL season. Teams getting bounced, a lot of fan bases are very upset, and then you got Bills Mafia making the playoffs in the end. I want to congratulate Bills Mafia for that. But the 1 o'clock games, not as exciting. Not many things were really impactful for the playoffs. I mean, you had the Vikings take care of the Bears at home, which kind of sealed the number 2 seed for them. You had the Patriots easily handle the Jets at home, sealed the number 1 seed. But other than that, I was just really paying attention to the Giants. I was watching the Giants game, making sure they got the number 2 pick because they took care of business against the Redskins. I want to applaud that. Will this be the last time us Giant fans see Eli Manning in Giants blue? A lot of questions kind of open up about that. But one thing's for certain, Kirk Cousins cannot beat the Giants in the Meadowlands in Week 17. I know this was a meaningless game for the Skins, but they could have got to 500. They ended up losing, finishing their season 2-6 on the road. Could be Kirk Cousins' last year with the Redskins as well. The Giants started that game hard with that Orleans Darkwa touchdown run, so it was kind of right off the gate. Giants started fast. Too bad they couldn't have done that the entire season. But the Colts luckily took care of business against the Texans at home, or the Giants would have screwed themselves into the 3rd pick in the draft. So I'm very happy that that all kind of evolved in that way. But the 1 o'clock games, rather boring. I feel really bad for Corey Coleman and the Browns. The Browns almost pulled off an upset in Pittsburgh. Granted, Pittsburgh benched all of their starters in this game. But Corey Coleman dropped a valuable 4th down pass when they were driving to win the game late in the 4th quarter. And he was wide open, no excuse for dropping it. He just dropped the pass, sealed Hugh Jackson's fate as an 0-16 coach, joins 2008 Rob Marinelli of the Detroit Lions. It's the only teams to go 0-16. But those 425 games, my friends, those 425 games revealed a lot. Revealed a hell of a lot. We had, I want to just dive right into the Bengals first. The Bengals, the team that is notorious for screwing you when you need to rely on them. The Bills relied on them because the Bills took care of business in Miami. We all saw that coming. Miami scored a garbage time touchdown with David Fales as their quarterback to make the game look more competitive at 22-16. But the game really wasn't. The Bills handled their business, and Kyle Williams had a rushing touchdown, which is absolutely amazing. But we also saw a cool scrum in that, too, which had Jarvis Landry and Kenyon Drake get ejected. But again, they win that game, so their fate lies with Baltimore losing because Tennessee took care of business against the Jaguars because Blake Bortles, for whatever reason, just cannot beat the Tennessee Titans. So the Bengals were up the majority of this game. But like everyone expected, this is a hard division game. The AFC North, they play real football up there. Baltimore battled back. Alex Collins had a beautiful 17-yard touchdown run. Then Justin Tucker hit a field goal. Mike Wallace catches a 6-yard touchdown pass from Joe Flacco. Baltimore's up 27-24. A couple changes of possession, but a little over a minute left. Andy Dalton orchestrates an 11-play drive that went 90 yards and saw Tyler Boyd catch a 49-yard pass on 4th freaking down, guys. 4th down. Andy Dalton drops a dime, probably about 20 yards downfield to Tyler Boyd, and he takes it the other 29 yards for a touchdown with 44 seconds left in the game. The Bengals won 31-27. This is one of the most heartbreaking losses of any franchise because it knocks Baltimore out of the playoffs. They had a 9-7 record. All they had to do was win, and they were in. They controlled their fate, and they failed against a division rival who Marvin Lewis could be out of a job. He says it's complicated. It's still not or certain if he will be let go, if he's going to work in the front office, or if he'll be the head coach. We're not sure. But the Bengals, a team that you never rely upon, stepped up, beat their division rivals, and the Bills, by default, because they won their game, get that 6th seed, end that 17-year drought of not making the playoffs. Now Bills Mafia gets to go and play in the playoffs, and I am incredibly excited about that. And I have some Bills friends, and I just want to clap my hands to them and say best of luck against Jacksonville next week on Sunday, which is very, very intriguing because when you think about that matchup, when the Pagulas bought the Bills, Doug Marrone was the head coach. He opted out of his contract, which is something no one ever does. There's only 32 coaching jobs. He left his contract because he thought he had the Jets job in hand, and he's a New York guy. He didn't want to be a part of everything the Bills were going through. So he opted out of his contract. And the Jets backed. It was understood that they had a under-the-table agreement. The Jets backed out of that. And Marrone was left without a job. So he went down to Jacksonville and was their offensive line coach. And worked his way up to be the head coach of the team for the Jaguars. So you have that narrative going. It's a big narrative right there. Bills probably hate Doug Marrone. And I can understand 110% why you would. And then you also have the narrative of Marcel Darius. The Bills, midseason, traded Marcel Darius, their Pro Bowl defensive tackle, to the Jaguars. So there's a lot of revenge narratives going on when it comes to the Bills and the Jaguars. Very excited about that game. But that left me shocked. One of the last plays of the game, one of the last plays of the season. Bengals take care of business. Ravens do not make the playoffs. That was huge. But the NFC also saw some significant seeding because the Saints, with Jameis Winston orchestrates some late-game magic and plays spoiler to the Saints because the Saints could have locked up that number 3 seed, which would have had them play the Falcons, their division rivals, in the Superdome. But instead, the Buccaneers team, not playing for anything, went 5-11. Dirk Cutter will be retained. Play spoiler, beat the Saints. So the Saints end up falling to the 4th seed, and now they have to play Carolina in the wild card round. Because Carolina ended up losing to the Falcons. Falcons get in, Seahawks, doesn't even matter. They're out. When you think about the Seahawks anyways, they lost to the Cardinals. So they weren't going to make it no matter what. So when you look at these teams, you look at that 425 slate, a lot of that, there's a lot of things being told there, a lot of seeding questions. Bills get in, good for them. I'm very, very happy for them. So now when we're looking at this playoff picture, you have the AFC, the Patriots, 13-3, lock up that number 1 seed. The Steelers get that first round bye at 13-3. Then you have the number 3 seed, Jaguars, 4 seed, Chiefs, 5 seed, Titans, 6 seed, Bills. And I'll tell you one thing. I was upset that the Ravens didn't get in for one reason. We've seen it in the past. It's been a while, but we've seen it in the past. The Ravens have gone up to Foxborough and beaten the Patriots. That is a really heated playoff rivalry that they have. And we know Harbaugh and Flacco have that in them. They have a defense that could challenge the Patriots with Dean Pease as a defensive coordinator who just retired today. But it didn't happen. Ravens couldn't get it done against a division rival. And honestly, you look at the AFC, who's knocking the Patriots off? I don't trust the Steelers to do it without AB. Definitely not the Jaguars. You look at the Chiefs and you think, can they put the game plan together? Possibly. They did it in week 1, but can they do it when it really matters? In the playoffs? Yet to be seen. Titans, biggest fraud of a team that's in the playoffs. And then the Bills. I don't see that happening as much as I'm happy for the Bills. And they got to get past the Jaguars anyways. So everything runs through Foxborough, and I thought if the Ravens could have got in there, and if the Chargers could have got in there with their pass rush, their defense, and Phillip Rivers, that could have made things interesting too. But both those teams did not earn a playoff berth, and that leads to a more cupcake schedule in the AFC playoffs, in my opinion. Because again, I don't believe in the Titans. I don't believe in the Jaguars. The Bills, I think it's a great story, but I don't see them making any kind of hay, especially with a beat-up LaShawn McCoy. AFC playoffs, we're going to see Tommy Brady tossing in the Super Bowl again? Could be. But the NFC, I do like the NFC playoff landscape. You have the Eagles with the number 1 seed, does not look good. They looked really bad, even with Nick Foles in for the couple series that he played yesterday when they were shut out. But again, they benched a lot of their starters. But the Eagles didn't look good against Oakland either. They won, but they didn't look good. The number 2 seed had the Vikings. And the Super Bowl's played in Minnesota. So will they ever leave Minnesota? Could they ride it all the way to the Super Bowl? Very good possibility that could happen. But the Rams, the Saints, the Panthers, and the Falcons, all those teams can challenge them. I'm not big on the Falcons. I know they went to the Super Bowl last year, but they barely squeaked in. I'm not really sold on their team, to be honest. Panthers losing to Atlanta definitely gives me some reservations when it comes to the Panthers as well. But it was a road game. Falcons were playing for a lot. You know, Cam Newton, that defense, they're very, very solid. It's a very foundationally built team in a positive way. But the Saints and the Rams, very exciting teams. I'm very excited to watch the Saints, the Vikings, and the Rams in this playoffs. I think the NFC playoff picture is going to be very, very entertaining. And I'm going to watch every single one of those games in and out. And honestly, the Vikings don't have many flaws. You could point at Case Keenum, call him a flaw, but he's played above his head this entire season. They have a strong running game, and they have probably the best defense in the NFC. Saints have a great defense, very strong running game, 2 great running backs, Hall of Fame quarterback. Panthers, strong-armed quarterback, great defense, utility weapon like Christian McCaffrey. Haven't really been able to run the ball as efficiently as you would like. Falcons, 2 great running backs, done it before. Very, very fast defense. A team that can get after the quarterback, something that we mocked them for like 3 years ago. They got Vic Beasley, Grady Jarrett, Adrian Claiborne. They're just getting after the quarterback now. So any of those teams have a legit chance. But then I look at the Eagles at the top. They're the ones they're the big question mark. They all lose Carson Wentz, lose Jason Peters, and will they be able, and they're lucky they have the home field advantage. I don't want to say lucky because they earned it, but that's definitely something that works in their favor. Philadelphia can have some nasty weather. But can Nick Foles realistically beat the defense of the Vikings, the Saints, outscore an offense like the Rams? I don't think so. I don't. But we will see it all play out. Wild card weekend is going to be incredibly entertaining. We see the Titans go to the Chiefs on the first game. I expect the Chiefs to take care of business there. The Falcons go to Los Angeles at night. I think the Rams will score too many points. And the Falcons, Matt Ryan, Steve Sarkisian, their offensive coordinator, it just has not been put together yet. So I think the Rams will handle their business. Bills, Jaguars, I think the Jaguars defense will suffocate Tyrod. Tyrod kind of has significant home road split, so I think the Jaguars will take care of it. And the Saints, Panthers, that's a divisional game. I wouldn't be shocked if the Panthers win that game, but I would bet the Saints if I'm a betting man. And that would set up for an amazing divisional round of the playoffs. But it's one of the best times of the year. Playoff football. You can't get better than that. You really can't. Other notable things that happened. Pat Mahomes. We got to see him in red because we may not be seeing Alex Smith next season as a Chief. More than likely we will not be. So we got to see that. He went 284 for 22 of 35, 284, and an interception in that game. We thought he had a rushing touchdown, but it turned out he stepped out of bounds. You could just see his first pass up the seam to Demetrius Harris was an absolute dart. This kid is going to be very, very exciting. Remember that name, Patrick Mahomes, if you're not a diehard football fan and you listen to me ramble on about football. But yes, I am very excited about the playoff landscape. But as I'm sitting here saying how excited I am, it is a sad day for a lot of people. You got to humanize this. I know a lot of people are losing their jobs. I know it's a business and they signed up for it. But these people are still picking their lives up, moving to these cities. And then they get fired. And they have to pick their lives up again and move. So it is one of those things that it must be hard. And a lot of coaches have been let go. McAdoo, midseason. Jack Del Rio of the Raiders has been fired. Chuck Pagano of the Colts. Jim Caldwell of the Lions. John Fox of the Bears. And Bruce Arians. Looks like Vance Joseph, who everyone thought was getting fired, turns out a lot of the team stuck up for him, wanted him to stick around, and he will be retained. Marvin Lewis, it's still up in the air what's going on with that. We talked about that briefly before. John Fox, been saying it since last year. He's going to be fired at the end of the season. He was basically a scapegoat. There was really never a great marriage between him and Ryan Pace. There were reports that he didn't want to trade up to get Mitchell Trubisky, and it seems like all that was true. Fox is out. I mean, he really didn't do anything to excite anybody up in Chicago. I'm sure his name will be floated around circles a lot, but he went 14-34 in 3 seasons with the Bears. This season they ended up going 5-11. It's just one of those things where it wasn't helped by a lot of his decisions. I think the one that everyone remembers this season was when he challenged, when his team had first and goal, and he challenged if the runner, which was Jordan Howard, was in the end zone for a touchdown. And on the challenge, it was reviewed, and it was seen that Jordan Howard fumbled the ball in the back of the end zone, which resulted in a touchback, so he lost possession, and it was a touchback, and the other team get the ball. That's something that really indicates Fox's tenure in Chicago. Just did not work out whatsoever. Jim Caldwell, though, went 36-28 in his 4 years with 2 playoff appearances for the Lions. Now, if you follow football, you know the Lions have kind of been a knockoff version of the Browns in recent history, where they haven't had a lot of success. They haven't won a Super Bowl. Caldwell came in there, stabilized that team, went 36-28. That's not bad. But once Bob Quinn was hired as general manager, it was kind of written that Caldwell was going to lose his job. It was just extended last year because the Lions ended up getting into the postseason and he couldn't do it. But this is the one year you lose to the Bengals in a Week 16 game. That's very, very pivotal. Despite it being on the road, it doesn't matter. That kind of sealed his fate of being fired, and that's exactly what happened. Lost, took himself out of the playoff race, and he was let go. Matt Stafford balled out, though, against the Packers at home yesterday, where he threw for 3 touchdowns, over 300 yards, and he had a receiving touchdown, which was very, very entertaining. But Caldwell gets let go, and it's going to be very exciting to see who they want to bring in, because they have Jim Bob Cooter, their offensive coordinator, and him and Matt Stafford and that offense have been clicking very, very well. So I could see them bringing in a defensive coach and trying to retain their offensive coordinator in Jim Bob Cooter. Could they promote Jim Bob Cooter to head coach? Possibly, but I think they want to keep him as a coordinator, have him focus on the offense. They could just promote Terrell Austin, who's their defensive coordinator right now, make him head coach. There's rumblings about that, but we will see what happens. Arizona, Bruce Arians, he retired. Mr. Arians has been around forever. We remember that when he took over for Chuck Pagano, and Andrew Luck, when he was young, led him through the playoffs. He was with the Steelers for the longest time with Big Ben. He's been around the league for quite some time. But he retired now, and I can't blame him. He's had health issues in the past. He's in a division now that just looks like it got incredibly competitive after being a joke for a while, where it was really just Seattle and then the Cardinals. Now you have McVay with the Rams. You have Shanahan with the Niners with Garoppolo. So I totally understand why he wants to walk away. That says a lot about what's going on with Carson Palmer. Well, Larry Fitzgerald, are they going to come back? Do they want to be a part of a rebuild? A lot of questions surrounding Arizona right now. It looks like a pure rebuild spot. Cincinnati, again, Marvin Lewis has 125 wins. Is he going to walk away? He has not determined. I think if he wants to be the head coach, Mike Brown, their owner, is going to let him be the head coach. He's one of the most trusting, loyal owners there is, and that's what it seems like going to happen. Again, Vance Joseph staying with the Denver Broncos for another year. I look at that kind of situation. It looks like Elway wanted to part ways with him. He really wanted to part ways with him. And the team didn't exactly want it. And then he was forced to keep him in a way. I don't know. I just don't like how that whole thing evolved. Hopefully it works out for Vance because he's a young head coach. But I don't really trust when your owner wants to fire you, but he just ends up not doing it because he's swayed by the players or what have you. Just one of those situations that's kind of ugly. Bill O'Brien staying in Houston, something that definitely should happen. And then we had Pagano fired. I think Chris Ballard wanted to let him go last year. They gave him another year. Didn't end up coming to fruition. Chris Ballard comes from the Chiefs organization. So I look at Matt Nagy. I look at Dave Toub, both coaching candidates. Toub is a special teams coach, so it's not going to, get headlines. You want those powerful offensive coaches, but there's been plenty of successful coaches, and it comes on a day when his team was just eliminated from the playoffs before making it. But John Harbaugh, very special. special teams coach. Haha, see what I did there? But Pagano out of Indianapolis, all saw that coming. And then, obviously, the Giants fired McAdoo. That's something that we've talked about plenty on the show. And that gets me to the most interesting one. The most interesting one is Jack Del Rio of the Raiders. He signed a 4-year extension last offseason. They lose to the Chargers, end up going 6-10 after going 12-4 last year, and going, I think, 7-9 the year before that, his 3 years. Del Rio's fired. It doesn't seem like the team was really all together with Jack Del Rio. I know he's very close with Derek Carr, but it didn't seem like he had everybody in that locker room. And the reason I'm really stressing the Jack Del Rio point is it's looking like it's going to happen, my friends. John Gruden's going to leave the ESPN booth and be the next Oakland Raiders head coach. It's not in writing yet. There's a lot of whispers going around NFL circles, though. And John Gruden supposedly has been amassing a staff. He's been putting his staff together, his coaching staff, his coordinators, his positional coaches. Supposedly, again, this is rumored, nothing's officially reported on, but supposedly Rich Gannon is going to be his quarterback coach. Paul Gunther is going to be his defensive coordinator, and he wants, but I don't know if he's going to get him because he is already on the Jets team. He wants John Morton as his offensive coordinator. Johnny Morton came from the Saints, goes to the Jets, has a lot of success with Josh McCown and a lot of receivers that a lot of people did not know. Robbie Anderson. So he's amassing a staff, and John Gruden's going to leave that booth. He's going to do the game on Saturday, but he's going to be the next head coach of the Oakland Raiders, and he's going to have to go through the entire move to Las Vegas. I'm not 100% sure what they're going to do with Reggie McKenzie, the general manager. I know they're going to give him a lot of say. They're supposedly are going to give him ownership stake in the Raiders franchise. Mark Davis wants to do that, the owner of Oakland, soon to be Las Vegas. This is very, very exciting. This has been rumored for so long. Gruden has been linked to all these jobs. It's looking like he's going to come back. And I'm very intrigued by this. But, again, the guy hasn't coached in about 10 years. He joined ESPN back in 2009 after several losing seasons with the Bucs. I'm not saying he's a bad coach by any means. I'm sure he's great. But it's been a while. The NFL is very dynamic. It changes constantly. So let's remember that. Every year it changes. Every week it frickin' changes. And we've seen that happen. Remember when RG3 came in 2012 and it was the biggest thing with the read options and the zone reads and the RPOs and things like that? He looked like he was the next huge thing. Suffers an injury, out of the league in a couple years. It's wild how fast everything changes in the NFL. But on to some of these coaching vacancies. I mean, we look at this. Again, you know the Lions want to retain Jim Bob Cooter. You know the Bears are going to want an offensive coach because they have a young quarterback in Mitchell Trubisky. So this is where you kind of start putting the puzzle pieces together. Because it is a puzzle. Things make sense. And there's a lot of people who are linked together. You don't want to force general managers and coaches together. That does not work. Look at Rick Smith and Bill O'Brien right now. That's been up in the air for the last couple years. We're still yet to know if Rick Smith is going to be retained. But there's a lot of good coaching candidates out there right now. And Matt Patricia has been linked to the Lions. He's been linked to the Giants. Matt Patricia is the defensive coordinator for the Patriots. Over the last couple years, Patriots opponents have averaged under 20 points. He's been getting it done. And again, he has Bill Belichick, one of the best defensive coaches that the game has ever seen, overseeing him. But he's getting it done. And that's something that needs to be said about Matt Patricia. And obviously on the other side of the coin, you have Josh McDaniels. Everyone's going to want to hire and interview Josh McDaniels. The Giants have put in for it, and rightfully so. Josh McDaniels was the head coach for the Denver Broncos a little while back in like 2008, 2009. And it didn't work out for him. He ended up drafting Tim Tebow, and people kind of mocked him for that. Look, people make mistakes. And I'm not saying Tim Tebow was a mistake, but people fail at their first job. Look at Bill Belichick when he was with the Browns. It was a failed thing. The Browns ended up moving to Baltimore, and him and his entire staff get let go. And that staff, by the way, had Nick Saban on it, had Kirk Ferentz on it, had Thomas Dimitroff. It had so many ridiculous people on that staff. You wonder what it could have been if they didn't move to Baltimore. That's a Story for another day. But Josh McDaniels went 11-17 with Kyle Orton mainly as his quarterback, and then Tim Tebow. Then he goes back to the Patriots to be the offensive coordinator, and we've seen him just have success. He's orchestrated this offense for such a long time under Belichick with Tom Brady. And he's going to be the hot hire that everyone is talking about, for sure. And I would love for him to go to the Giants, but we will see how that kind of all comes to fruition. He hasn't left the Patriots, despite being very sought after, because he's looking for the right job. And I compare him to the Giants, because the Giants have a lot of intriguing pieces, and they're going to have a top pick. But they have an aging quarterback who has a lot of money on the cap, and they have no offensive line. So I don't know if that's going to be appetizing enough for him to jump at it. I know the Colts are also interviewing him. The Colts have Andrew Luck. If he's healthy, that's somebody that's going to entice him. He wants to be with a quarterback who's smart and who's very, very good, and that's Andrew Luck. But again, I could see Ballard going for one of his guys, either Dave Toub or Matt Nagy, because they're from that same coaching tree. They're from the Chiefs organization. That can make a lot of sense to me. The Giants have been linked to Jim Schwartz, who used to be the Lions head coach, and he's now the defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. And his kind of knock as the head coach of the Lions was they weren't disciplined. They had guys like Ndamukong Suh at the time. They ended up going 29-52 as the Lions head coach, which isn't a winning percentage by any means. But he did have a playoff berth. They were 10-6 one year, I want to say. Ended up going to the playoffs. And he's interviewing for the job as well. And if that happens, we get Jim Schwartz. His 4-3 attacking defense fits very well with what the Giants have, with the personnel of the Giants. Now, if we were to get him as a head coach, he's going to bring John DeFilippo, the quarterback's coach, under Frank Reich, of the Philadelphia Eagles, and he would be our offensive coordinator. That's what I think would happen if the Giants do pursue Jim Schwartz. But I think they're going to cross all their T's, they're going to dot all their I's. Dave Gettleman knows what he's doing. Now, he's never had to hire a coach before. Remember, Ron Rivera was there before him. But I trust the Giants. I think the Ben McAdoo fiasco, a lot of things went wrong there. But that's in the past, and I'm going to trust this ownership to do the right thing and find the right coach for this team. Remember, you want someone who can communicate. You want someone who is a leader, a strong personality. And there's plenty of people out there. But Jim Schwartz is in the running for it, as is Matt Patricia, as is Josh McDaniels. And Dave Toub is also. Other names that you must monitor, I think Steve Wilks. He has links to Dave Gettleman for the Giants. I think Steve Wilks is a strong candidate. He's been a defensive coordinator only 1 year, so I'm a little hesitant because he hasn't had that responsibility for an extended period of time because Sean McDermott is now the head coach with the Bills. He was under Sean McDermott. Steve Wilks has also been the assistant head coach, so he has that under his belt as well. But the link between Gettleman and Wilks, pay attention to that. Pay attention to that. Frank Reich, offensive coordinator of the Eagles. Chris Richard, the Seahawks defensive coordinator. Mike Vrabel, the Texans defensive coordinator. These are all people who are in the running for these coveted jobs. I think John Gruden's coming back, so I think that locks the Raiders up. You hear rumbles about Jim Harbaugh and Bill Cowher. I'm not sold on that. I'm not. I think Spags' name will be thrown out there. I don't think he'll get a head coaching job. Should be a defensive coordinator somewhere. Pat Shurmur, the offensive coordinator for the Vikings. That's somebody whose name has been thrown out there. I know he's been linked to the Lions as well, but again, I think the Lions want to keep Jim Bob Cooter. Jeff Fisher's name has been thrown out there. Not really looking too far into that. And then you have Terrell Austin, who is an African-American coaching candidate, who gets a lot of interviews. He's a very, very talented defensive coordinator for the Lions. The reason I bring up the fact that he's African-American is with the Raiders. Now, the Oakland Raiders are dead set on getting their guy, John Gruden. But there's the Rooney Rule. And the Rooney Rule is a fantastic rule in theory because you want everyone to have equal opportunity. But when it comes to cases like this, they know who they want. With the Oakland Raiders, you're just going to interview somebody for interview's sake, just because they're African American. To me, it's a waste of their time, it's a waste of your time, and they're going to amass all these interviews, these African American coaches. They're going to amass all these interviews, and then they're not going to get hired because it's a sort of a quote-unquote check in the box, which isn't right. But then people might look and say, why has this guy had all these interviews and then not been hired? I don't know. That's the one flaw in the Rooney Rule. The one and only flaw is that in particular. When it comes to the Raiders, they might have to just pay that fine, because I know there's a fine for not following through with the new rule, or they're going to have to bring somebody in for a dog and pony show, which isn't right, because it's a waste of everyone's time when you're not going to actually hire the person. But other than that, the Rooney Rule, fantastic rule in the league. But I think all of these guys, I think Terrell Austin, I think Josh McDaniels, Matt Patricia, Jim Schwartz, Dave Toub, John DeFilippo. John DeFilippo is a quarterback coach, so he's going to get upgraded to a offensive coordinator if he does end up leaving. But Schwartz, Patricia, Austin, McDaniels, all very, very intriguing. Shurmur, Schwartz, Toub, Matt Nagy. You got Mike Smith. Supposedly he's going to be the Buccaneers coordinator again. So all of these names are names to pay attention to in the next coming weeks, because all these general managers and these teams and these front offices are going to be looking to hire that new coach. And everyone wants this offensive coach because everyone sees what Sean McVay did with the Rams and what Shanahan's doing with the Niners right now. You look at the offensive coaches, Josh McDaniels. That's your guy. That's the guy that everyone's going to be drooling over. Pat Shurmur. Now, his head coaching career did not go too well when he was the Browns head coach. He went 9-23, but he was the Browns head coach. The Browns, there's like an asterisk there because that team is just a crap show every year. Hashtag Sad McNuddle. But he has stabilized that Vikings offense. Every year, his quarterback's completion percentage is one of the highest in NFL history. Sam Bradford last year, Case Keenum this year. And he turned Case Keenum, somebody who was a journeyman, into a star. So people will take note of that. And you have your defensive guys, Patricia, Schwartz, Spags. And you have your special teams, Dave Toub. But Gruden to the Raiders. That is pretty awesome. Also, look out for Steve Wilks, defensive coordinator, and Mike Vrabel for the defense as well. But I'm excited to see how this all plays out, who goes where, how long they stay there. I mean, last year Vance Joseph gets hired. He was almost out the door after 1 year with no quarterback because Elway's had some struggles finding a quarterback out there in Denver. But with all that being said, we will see the next coming weeks. And getting a report, Rick Smith said he will keep his executive vice president job during his leave of absence. So Rick Smith has taken a leave of absence, and it's looking like the Texans will hire a new general manager while he is gone. So he's going to stay with the franchise, but they're going to bring in a new general manager. So there's some personal things going on with Rick Smith's life right now. That's why he's taking that leave of absence. Totally understandable. But they're going to bring in another general manager. Bill O'Brien is staying, and that's going to be something that's going to be very exciting throughout the years. Deshaun Watson, Bill O'Brien together. I said if Bill O'Brien gets fired, the Giants better jump all over him. I would have loved to have him as the Giants head coach because he knows what he's doing. He's an offensive mind, and he just has that edge to him that I think works perfectly in New York. But yes, that is really what I wanted to go over. Again, the playoffs are here, and you couldn't be more excited about it. Remember, Titans, Chiefs, Falcons, Rams, Bills, Jags, Panthers, Saints. That is the wild card round. Alrighty, I'm Nick Filato. Hope you enjoyed me just rambling about coaches and random stuff like that. Keep tuning in and have a lovely day, guys. Bye-bye.